Joining us right now from Calgary, Alberta, is the Technical Director, Tommy Wheeldon of Calgary Foothills Soccer Club. Tommy, welcome to Red Card, my friend.
Thank you. It's not my first red card, unfortunately.
Stand in line, Tommy. I've had a lot in my day as well. Tommy, let's get right to it. Let's first of all talk about your club. Let's tell the viewers out there how many kids are in your club roughly, how many coaches you have, how many paid staff. Give us a little bit of an overview before we talk about the big story that came out of there a few days ago.
Sure. You know what? I think I guess the brief synopsis is Calgary Foothills. We're famous for Owen Hargreaves, Kevin McKenna, the former Canada captain, and more recently Sam Adekubi, Charlie Trafford, currently in the national program. They're graduates of our system. Sarah Kinsner, Maya Jones on the winning side. But yeah, we've been around since 1972, and I've had been a great list of people before me. But I joined in 2007, and it was actually at a time where we were about 350 kids. We were very competitive, but more of a boutique type of club. And we had an academy restructure, coaches training restructure, brought in a new facility. I was able to add a member of staff full-time every year. So we're now up to, with our grassroots program, growing from there up into our PDL and women's franchises. We're about 2,500 players in the outdoor season. So with that comes with I've got now 8 full-time staff and 2 part-time administrators, and with including in that is a grassroots manager, a sports scientist. Leon Hapgood takes care of the boys program, Troy Flannery on the girls. We've got a tier 2 and 3 specialist, a skills coach. We've got a bit of everything, and now our vision is obviously to try and change the landscape of Canadian soccer by creating more opportunities for players to play in and more players to play in our national teams.
You've had some players who have been on our show before. Charlie Trafford got a special place in my heart for that youngster. Saw him here years ago playing with York University, and I knew he would be destined to good things. He signed recently in Poland, I believe. We'll get him on in the next few weeks as well. Sam Adekubi, young star on the rise for Canada, blazing speed. So well done by you and your club developing these youngsters, boys and girls, to go on to success. Tommy, before we go on, you mentioned a specific coaching title there, skills coach. I've never heard of that. What does your skills coach specifically do in your club?
Well, do you know what? We're I guess the CSA and many of these FAs across the globe have their own, long-term training programs, the LTPD. And what that does is it just gives you the stages of learning. So, for example, the golden age of learning, as we call it, is at 7 to 11 or 12, depending on boys or girls, is the optimal skills window. So proven studies are saying that the highest level of skill acquisition is in those early stages. So what we did is we found a specialist that we call our skills academy manager. It's Jonathan Wheeldon, who happens to be my younger brother, but he then focuses on that technical development of those players in those years, because if we miss those formative years, we're going to do a lot of catch-up, and that's probably where we have our flaws in our Canadian model. Is we're still trying to teach them the technique, when they're ready for the tactics. So when I go away with the men's U17 national team with Sean Fleming and obviously Tony Fonseca, we come up against Mexico, and in the earlier stages, we can compete even though they're quality. Same with the Americans. But it's as they're getting into 17s and 18s, and Rob Gale will tell you with the U20s, it's their game model environment, it's the gameplay that they're ready for, but they've already ticked the boxes of the technical development. So literally they're playing it in a tactical situation. We're just slightly behind in getting our windows right. So we sought out to put that right in our club and try and do it en masse. So as they got through, we could concentrate on game and tactical situations.
Tommy, I agree, but I also disagree. I got to be honest, here in this show, okay, we tell it the way it is. We don't sugarcoat it. So I got to challenge you on that. With all due respect to Rob Gale, with all due respect to Fonseca, yourself and the others, look, I know the Canadian system inside out. I followed it for 30 plus years, got 2 sons in it. And I'll tell you something, when we get to the ages of 15 and 16, we can compete with anyone in the CONCACAF region. Forget the rest of the world, just CONCACAF. Once we get past that stage, I have to have a lot of blame given to the coaches all across this country for one specific area that I feel that we're stifling our young players. That's creativity. That's understanding what to do with the ball when you get in that box. That's offensive thinking instead of so much of defensive thinking and more of the physical attributes bringing to the game. That's where I stand. I mean, I really believe we need to start letting some of these kids have some ability and some flow and some creativity like some street ball and see what happens.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to environment, and because you've got to get meaningful games. You know, it's one thing to develop these skillful players at the early ages, and like you said there, I agree with you in terms of 15, 16, anywhere in the world we compete with. But after then, and here comes back the argument, is we don't have a professional league or even an under-23 league of substance where these players are playing 20, 30 games and they can express themselves and really grow. Mexico, America, all these other CONCACAF regions, they have those leagues. So these players, they're putting the foot on the gas while we've still got the handbrake on. That's where the gap happens.
You're 100% bang on with that, Tommy. I've been part of League One Ontario since its inception 2 years ago. We're wrapping it up this weekend with awards and all sorts of things that are going to take place. And I'll tell you, Tommy, in the last year specifically, I'll never forget the kickoff, first game of the year. It was TFC Academy at their grounds taking on Sigma with Kyle Lauren, who has come out of that system, #1 pick overall. And the amount of MLS scouts, the amount of NCAA scouts that flooded to come and watch was unbelievable. That's what I feel that your province needs. BC, Quebec, on and on, is a league like that. And then we take the next jump in a Canadian professional league coast to coast. And then if you want to go to MLS, that you believe that's your challenge, then so be it. Let's talk a little bit about that. You were in PDL. How have the fans, the city of Calgary, taken that? How have they embraced it? Have they said, this isn't our cup of tea per se? Because obviously, NHL, high-end, CFL, high-end players, PDL, it's really more a development league.
Absolutely. It's and we're very open with that. It's a farm league, much like the WHL is. It's a farm league to bigger things. So the PDL, what's benefits of it? It's associated with the highest pyramid in North America, the MLS, and it has its pathway. We have to start it slowly because I was part of the old USL A-League franchise, the Calgary Storm. That's how I arrived back in 2002 to play for that team. But we folded in 2003 and we flirted with it. And I tell you what's happened is everybody's then very cautious about the inception of a professional team and how long they're going to be around. So we've decided to do it an organic grassroots approach and develop, our own pyramid so we can feed into it. We've got an internal fan base and then attract those from the outside. Like we've got independent fans and a supporters group called the Foot Soldiers that they want to see, professional soccer come back. And it's about developing the relationships then with the respective supporter clubs that, sit in the pubs and watch the games from the Bundesliga to La Liga to the Premier League and engage them as this is what we're trying to do for the Canadian game. And you know what? It's a 10-year vision that we're applying, and we're only really into year 2 of it.
So let's talk about it, Tommy. When I was first alerted of this, when I was first given some info about it, I did not laugh. I did not look at this and say this is a joke. This is just some free promotion that Calgary Foothills Club wants. I really believe in something like this all over North America. I believe this is the way to go. It's like you said, building from the bottom up, and then at the top of the pyramid, there is an opportunity for an MLS club. How did this all come about? What are the thoughts around the city of Calgary? Because we know that the economy in Calgary right now and in Alberta is real bad. We understand that you got a battle on your hands with the stadium, on and on. Run us through the whole gamut.
So I'll tell you what our challenge, and I've spoken with a few people at the Flames Foundation. We're called a great sporting city, but for me and the country I hail from and my new country is the challenge is it's missing world's #1 sport. The MLSE, obviously, they have the Raptors, the Maple Leafs, and TFC. You look over out west, and you got Whitecaps that share a field with BC Place with the BC Lions. And obviously you got the Canucks in the neighbouring Rogers Centre. So they're great sporting cities because they're ticking the box of, the Canada's most played sport as well, which is obviously soccer. And you look at the attendances of the MLS alone. So Calgary has proven that, for having an average Flames team, they've still been able to pack the Saddle Dome. For the Stampeders, they get the McMahon Stadium at good crowds. But what they are missing, they are a great sporting city, but they are missing the soccer franchise. So what we're trying to do is have a team that's growing and a bunch of young lads that are playing, that are locally bred, and we can feed them in. So if that does catch fire, and it is it is the forest of fire effect, then we've got players that are ready to jump up, whether it's, USL Pro, whether it's NASL next. We've got players that are ready to jump in that are local heroes as well, because I think you need, in order to develop Canadian soccer, you need Canadian players ready to play in a league. And I commend what's going on with the League One Ontario. They're starting young and they're doing the right things, and then academies are feeding into it. We want to grow the PDL franchise up into the USL Pro, and eventually, we're going to need some significant backers, and whether it's us or the Flames Foundation come in and want to do their own thing, we would love to see an MLS franchise in this city.
Why not the new Canadian League? I had on Victor Montelani, president of the CSA, a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about how that has been in the works and in the process the last couple of years. Why not a franchise in the new Canadian League instead of, trying to go into the MLS, where you and I both know, Tommy, you talked about the importance of the Canadian player and having a spot for the Canadian player to play. You and I both know MLS could care less about the Canadian player. Don Garber really could care less if there's one spot or none.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, but the counter-argument could be, and they're having this in England with the influx of the foreign player, is, are you then bringing through the best Canadian players because they're vying and playing with the best players that are in the MLS? I agree, though, we do need a domestic league, and there is actually room for both. Look at, you've got England and Scotland, you've got the domestic league for the Scots, and then the better ones come across to England. I think you need to compete against and with the Yanks, much like the NHL, and I think we've got to do a better job of all having, domestically an under-23 side that, if it is an all-Canadian, we need that league as well. I do think there's room for both, because to be able to stay and remain in the one of the top 10 leagues in the world, I think that's important for the Canadian players to have access. But we also need a domestic league as well. So I would welcome both, to be honest.
Tommy, a lot of times we neglect the coaches out there, the Canadian young coaches, the Canadian guys that have been doing a lot of studying, getting their licenses, traveling all over to get better as a coach. And the doors are always closed on their face when an opportunity has arisen with a club, with whatever, university or college might come. I think it's vitally important that we also provide a place for coaches, that we have this new Canadian League, a place to coach, because it's great to have players in there, but I believe we also have to have spots for Canadian coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can only do that if you have your own domestic league. So that's that argument, absolutely. And then, as they grow, would they get opportunities to go coach in Europe, South America, or even down in the States in the MLS? That's great. You look at the great work Mark DeSantos has done, and obviously Colin Miller with Jeff Paulus. You got Martin Nash that was with Mark DeSantos. These are good Canadian coaches. You look at Mark Watson and Nick Dasovich that were unfortunately let go of the San Jose Earthquakes. They're good Canadian coaches, and we need more of them. We don't have a shortage of them, in my opinion. And all my travels across the country, is I meet a lot of them. It's just opportunity. We have so that's where we've got to get back in from, whether it's BMO, great Canadian companies, whether it's Rogers or BlackBerry, and get these big companies on board and invest in the League One type of environment in every major province. So if you had one in BC as well, which they're talking about, bringing one to Alberta, having one in Ontario and Quebec, then suddenly you've got the big four. And then the other neighbouring provinces across the prairies and the Atlantics, they can maybe start to filter in as well. But you definitely need your own one, which is standards-based, coaches and games like we get when we get our franchise fees for the PDL and USL, NASL, whatever. You have standards and criteria you have to meet, and that's the only way we can grow it.
Have you presented your plan, Tommy, to the Mayor of Calgary? Have you presented your plan to the Premier of Alberta? Have you presented your plan to the President of the Alberta Soccer Association?
Yeah, so I'm in regular talks with the President of the Alberta Soccer Association and the Technical Director, Sean Lowther, who's a former Canadian international himself. So he wants high-performance leagues in Alberta, and we're here to support that case. We've discussed this with Mayor Nenshi. The only one we haven't talked to is the Premier of Alberta. So we're working our way through. And I guess what's been great about it is because we've started to have little bits of success with our players coming through, and we're announcing that we're going to be building a new 11v11 indoor facility, the first in Alberta. Our club is catching fire. So with that, you gain influence and you want to help others. We talk openly with other clubs and members that, look, listen, we're not a closed door club. If you want to see what we're doing and the things and how we achieve getting to facilities, this is our blueprint. We'll share it so more clubs can do it. And that's what we're trying to do in case of, just hoarding resources. That's not what we're about. If we develop Canadian soccer, we've got to do it en masse versus just one at a time.
Well, God bless you, Tommy. That's the first time I've ever heard a technical director in all my years hosting soccer shows all across Canada saying that your doors are open to other clubs, other technical directors. We don't have all the answers. We want to work with you. We want to do what's right for the game. God bless you, because here in Ontario, I'll be honest with you, it's cutthroat. No one would open the door to anyone. They'd want to break it down to take and pillage all your best players, on and on and on. But for you to say that, I got to give it to you, because here in Ontario, it's deadly.
Do you know what? And it was for a while in Alberta, and things are starting to change. I hear something similar. I've just been to BC to watch the men's national team and met with a few clubs there. I'm curious. I'm always about that. But my opinion is we're in no position to hoard our resources, because we're ranked 102nd in the world the last time I checked, or 109th, sorry. So we've got to share, we've got to collaborate, we've got to move forward together, because unfortunately we're having a civil war of soccer if we keep hoarding resources.
Well, that's the absolutely right, Tom, and that's the point I don't understand. I mean, the University of Toronto and head coach Anthony Capitosta are going to have their soccer conference, which I believe it's the 4th or 5th year running. I've been there since the beginning, and I don't understand why all the coaches in Ontario, if not at least 3/4 of them, should be in there supporting this, learning, digesting, taking everything. And I've talked to all of them with my sons out in the travels in the past years, and whether of an Italian background, Portuguese, Serbian, Scottish, whatever, you know what they all say to me? Anthony, what have I got to go there and learn? I come from the old country. I know it all already. They should come to me to learn from me. I look at them and I shake my head and I say to them, you wonder why Canada is where we are. It's because of guys like you, Tommy.
Yeah, well, and that's what we have a saying around our club: you only know what you know. So if you've only been experienced by or built by your own experiences, then if I'm talking to you now, I'm learning things off of you and your opinions of Ontario and experiences. We can always share something. If it's one thing we take away, then that's I'm +1 in my learning. So that's something that we've got to continue to do, and we've got to continue to share. We won't always agree. You disagreed with one of my earlier points, but we'll collaborate and we'll share ideas and we'll challenge each other's ideas, and that's where you stand tall on your beliefs when someone challenges them. Because you might say, well, actually, it doesn't have a solid footing. He's got point. But if it does, then you stand tall and you influence others. And I think that's what we've got to do. We've got to, bang the drum. And there's some good people out. Obviously Jason DeVos is trying to do that there publicly. And there's some good people across the country that are trying to influence change. And we have to collaborate.
Tommy, just before we let you go, I really appreciate your time, but I can't let you go without talking a little bit about, you mentioned some of the young players that went on to some great success in the pros, but NCAA's, they're crowning champions very soon. The draft will be happening in the new year for MLS, on and on. Do you have NCAA schools, scouts that come up there to watch, scout your club and others in the Calgary area? Is there a hotbed in that city that craves and lives for college, university, and pro soccer? Is there a demand?
Do you know what? I would actually say it's an untapped market. On the girls' side, it's a bit more prevalent because the girls, obviously their chance of getting an NCAA scholarship is a lot higher than the boys. So with the volume of players on the boys' side, I think Alberta and Calgary in particular, they don't tend to travel here. They may travel up into Vancouver and the Whitecap Showcase, or up into Ontario and go to the Umbro one there. But they don't come into Calgary, and then whether that's because we don't have a lot of showcases, we go down and end up going that way. But I would say for the NCAA, it's most of our players actually go seeking it, to be honest, than them come to us.
Tommy, it was outstanding having you on tonight. Good luck in possibly bringing an MLS franchise to the city of Calgary in a few years' time. It would be exceptional. It would be outstanding because I believe Canada should at least have one more franchise. And why wouldn't it go to Calgary, where it has been the hotbed in the economy for so many years? Unfortunately, now it's gone down a bit, but I'm sure it'll pick up again. So we wish you, the Calgary Foothills Soccer Club, nothing but success and good luck on this venture, my friend.
Okay, thanks for having me on the show.
Pleasure's all mine. That is Tommy Wheeldon. He is with the Calgary Foothills Soccer Club. He is their technical director. Enjoyed having him on. And hey, it is a dream, but it could become reality. Who knows? With some heavy hitters, some big business people out there in Calgary that would get behind this venture and possibly try and bring an MLS club to the city of Calgary. Why not? I would say in 8, maybe 9 years' time from now, who knows? We might be talking about Vancouver, Calgary, Montreal, and Toronto.